Good evening. Welcome to the June 14th meeting of the Berkeley School Board. If you want to follow along on our online agenda, you can do so on your phone, or you can borrow a computer from Ms. Chires to my left. I want to remind everyone that the meeting tonight is broadcast live on YouTube and over the radio on 89.3 FM and on TV Comcast Cable Channel 33. Now I'm going to call the open session of tonight's meeting to order at 7:31 p.m. For the record, closed session began at 6:30 p.m. Ms. Chires, would you please share with community members present our process for translation of the meeting?
Buenas noches y bienvenidos. Si hay alguien que desea dirigirse a la mesa directiva durante el comentario público y necesita traducción de inglés al español, por favor déjenme saber. Muchas gracias. Director Beatriz Leiva Cutler.
Presente.
Student Director Alonta Keys will be here shortly. Director Karen Hemphill.
Here.
Student Director Petra Silvi.
Here.
Director Judy Appel.
Here.
Vice President Josh Daniels.
Present.
President Ty Alper.
Here. Thank you. Okay, we will now, hold on one second. We will now approve the agenda. Are there any requested changes to the agenda? Have a motion? Want to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Director Leiva Cutler, second by Director Hemphill. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Evans for a minute.
So Petra, on behalf of the board and myself, I want to thank you for everything that you've done this year. You have been a true champion for many issues, and not only have you represented Berkeley High School very well, but you represented all the students. And we're so proud of everything that you've done. And we know that there's many more great things in the future for you. So thank you.
And I just want to add, so in case you all haven't figured this out, this is Director Silvi's last meeting with us because she's graduating Friday and going off to UCLA. And I, too, on behalf of the board, want to thank you for your service to the board, your service to the district, and your service to Berkeley High. Is there anything? Is there anything you would like to say?
I wanted to say thank you for all the board members. I've learned so much while being on the board. It's been probably one of the best experiences I've had in high school, just learning about local politics and being so involved in my school district. It's really been an honor to represent Berkeley High, all the students, and to help work with you guys. So thank you.
You'll be missed.
So we have a plaque for you. How should we do this?
You just
get it.
Should we get a picture? Yeah.
With you two, or with everybody?
With everybody. What did you say?
On the door.
Don't mess with me.
I'm going to come down here.
We get to be next to you because we got to sit down. I'll do that next.
Yeah. All right, Mr. President.
Okay, one more.
And remember, we all have to get our picture. That's right.
And now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
I thought that was fun.
Yeah. I will now report from our closed session. In item 3.1, give me one minute. Okay, we're on case number This is item 3.1.1, case number 1617-04-040602. There was a motion by Director Leyva-Cutler with a second by Director Appel to accept the staff recommendation to expunge student records. And the vote was unanimous in favor of the motion. Item 3.1.2, case number 1617-07-040203. There was a motion by Director Appel with a second by myself to accept the staff recommendation with respect to the expungement of student records. And the vote was unanimous in favor of the motion. In case number 3.1.3, case number item number 3.1.3, case number 1617-08-101803, there was a motion by myself to accept the staff recommendation to expunge the student records with a second by Director Hempel. The vote was unanimous in favor of the motion. Item 3.1.4, case number 1617-16-072901. There was a motion by myself with a second by Director Hempel to reject the staff recommendation at this time without prejudice to the student returning with a similar request in June of 2018. Director Appel recused herself. Director Daniels and Director Leyva-Cutler voted in favor, and so the vote was 4-0, with Director Appel recusing herself. Item number 3.1.5, case number 1617-18-042107. There was a motion by Director Appel to accept the staff recommendation to expunge the students' records with a second by Director Daniels. Myself and Director Hempel voted in favor. Director Leyva-Cutler recused herself. So the vote was 4-0 with a recusal by Director Leyva-Cutler. Item 3.1.6, case number 1617-15-101804. There was a motion by Director Daniels to accept the staff recommendation to expunge the students' records with a second by Director Appel, and the vote was unanimous in favor of the motion. Item 3.1.7, case number 1617-SUS2-091405. There was a motion by Director Daniels to accept the staff recommendation to expunge the students' records with a second by Director Leyva-Cutler. The vote was unanimous in favor of the motion. Finally, item number 3.1.8, although it's listed as 3.1.7 on the agenda, 3.1.8, it's case number 1617-SUSI-122999. There was a motion by Director Hempel to accept the staff recommendation with respect to, accept the staff recommendation to expunge the students' records with a second by Director Daniels, and the vote was unanimous in favor of the motion. Okay. Item 3.2, collective bargaining. The board heard an update and provided direction. Okay, that concludes the report from closed session. I'm now going to provide a brief overview of tonight's meeting. First, we will hear 30 minutes of public comment. Then we will hear from our unions and district representatives, district committees. Then we will have comments from the board members and the superintendent. Then we'll consider our consent calendar, which are items that the board may vote to approve all in one motion. Then we'll hear a presentation in recognition of the AVID Berkeley High class of 2017. Then we will hear one action item, which is the approval of the Berkeley High redesign. And then we'll have two discussion items, which are both public hearings. The first is a public hearing on the draft of our local control and accountability LCAP plan, followed by a public hearing regarding our 2017-18 preliminary budget. At the end of the meeting, there'll be another opportunity for public comment. The next item on the agenda is 30 minutes for public comment. The Vice President and I have organized the speaking request, but there are actually enough cards that we can call everybody's card. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Really?
So we'll call each of the people who've submitted a card. We're going to, if your name is called, you may cede your time to another speaker. To do so, please stand up if your name is called, state your name, and indicate to whom you're ceding your time. By ceding your time, you give up the opportunity to speak, and no one can later cede their time to you to speak. Please note that you can only cede your time to a speaker who is speaking about the same topic you've written down on your card. Tonight, we'll allow people 3 minutes each to speak. Nobody can speak for longer than 3 minutes, so that we can hear from everybody who submitted a card in the 30 minutes we have allotted. When there's 1 minute left in your 3 minutes, the yellow light will turn on in front of you and up here and behind me. And when your time is up, the red light will go on. Please stop speaking as soon as the red light goes on, because we will limit the public comment period to 30 minutes. So in order to make sure that everybody gets to speak, we're going to ask that everyone stop speaking when the red light comes on. During the public comment, the board does not respond directly to comments or questions made during the public comment. Board members, the superintendent, and staff do take notes during public comment, and often will follow up with the speaker after the meeting. Following the public comment period, there's a period on the agenda during which the board members and the superintendent have a few minutes each to make a comment about whatever they want. That is the time in which board members can choose to, if they wish, respond to something said in public comment or make any other comment that they wish. And we found that this process keeps our meetings running smoothly, allows for a maximum number of people to speak during 30 minutes, and it ensures compliance with the Brown Act, which does not allow for board discussions about items not placed on the agenda at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting. I want to remind speakers that there are some children in the audience. There may also be children listening at home, so please keep that in mind as you speak. And if you have complaints about specific district employees, we encourage you to take advantage of our formal complaint process rather than using public comment for that purpose. We will now hear from and I'm going to call 2 people at a time, and if the next person can come stand up next to the Year of the Reader sign, that way we can move as efficiently as possible. I'm going to start with 2 students, Abby Steckel and Ruby Spies. Sorry, I know you were here before, and I got that wrong last time too. Abby and Ruby, followed by Catalina Espino Divine. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anybody's names. Okay, so you have 3 minutes each.
Okay. There we go. All right, good evening, school board members. My name is Ruby Spies, and I am Berkeley High Junior and a member of the Berkeley Youth Commission. I'm speaking tonight regarding the Youth Commission's proposal for a peer mental health education program at Berkeley High called the Mental and Emotional Education Team. At the City Council meeting last night, the proposal was referred to the 2x2 committee of the school board and the City Council. So we're here tonight to talk a little about our vision for this proposal and request that the school board review it. Earlier this semester, student leaders at BHS distributed an anonymous survey regarding student mental health needs and received striking responses. 60% of 9th through 12th graders report a need for support around mental or emotional health. 58% of those students say they haven't accessed any on or off-campus care. Another survey revealed that this year, 52% of 150 students surveyed missed 1 or more days of school due to mental health issues, and 32% self-medicated for stress, depression, anxiety, or another mental health disorder with marijuana, unprescribed pharmaceuticals, alcohol, and other substances. The culture at BHS does not promote conversations about mental health, and there is no official mental health curriculum. While some teachers cover topics relating to mental health, they are in the minority. When these conversations are not fostered in classroom settings, students rarely have the tools to facilitate them outside of the classroom. We can clearly see the ramifications of this in the survey data. While 51% of students report that they would be most likely to turn to a peer if they need support, only 22% believe that their peers are comfortable talking about mental health. To summarize all of this, the majority of BHS students need support for their mental health, but less than half of those students are accessing care, and even their preferred source of support, their peers, do not feel safe to confide in. This is an area of critical need, and one step we want to take to address this is the creation of a peer mental health education program.
My name is Abby Steckel, and I'm vice chair of the Berkeley Youth Commission.
So as you heard from Ruby, the gap between students' self-identified mental health needs and their access to on and off-campus resources is a big problem. And when mental health needs aren't addressed, these problems are exacerbated and lead to significant academic and personal repercussions for Berkeley youth. So the Mental Health Peer Educator program that the Youth Commission has proposed would train a group of about 10 teens to deliver presentations to all 9th grade students, covering common mental health disorders, on and off campus resources, and basic coping and intervention skills. The program is modeled off of the successful Sexual Health Information from Teens, or SHIFT program, which is a peer sexual health educator group that currently operates out of the Berkeley High Health Center. And given that over half of our student population has expressed mental health needs, the Youth Commission believes it appropriate to develop a similar program for mental health education. So the mental health peer educators would meet a specific need for preventative education and culture shift in an academic environment where mental health issues and services are stigmatized, which can prevent students in need from receiving essential care in crisis situations or otherwise. And the program objectives are to help build a positive mental health culture, increase access to services on and off campus, help students recognize when they need adult help, and develop engaged student leaders in mental and public health. So to close, I want to refer back to the survey findings. While many students said they would turn to a peer if experiencing mental health issues, far fewer said that their peers would be comfortable talking about mental health. So we know students often turn to unprepared peers for support. So what we need is to implement intelligent systems to get them the care they need. And we think that a peer educator program could be an effective solution to this issue, and look forward to hopefully working with the school board to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Ms. Devine?
Yes?
Followed by Eva De Oro. Go ahead.
Good evening, board members. My name is Catalina Espino Devine. I am a parent of 2 kids that are at Thousand Oaks Elementary School. And I wanted to talk to you today about the Thousand Oaks Bilingual Program and some concerns that I have that I want to share with you. So you are very familiar with this matter, I'm sure. We're concerned, the first thing that we're concerned about is the plan to combine the classes for kindergarten, first grade, and second grade for the next school year. So we felt, as a group of parents and teachers felt, that we weren't able to provide input to that decision. We were told about that decision in late May. We know that the board was talking about this decision back at least in March. So we felt that we just didn't have the time to provide input to that decision. And we're concerned on what would that mean for our combination classes with bilingual kids. Some of these kids have IEPs, and so there's just different group of kids that are marginalized in many other ways, and now they're put in this combination class for next year. So we're concerned about that. We have expressed our concerns to Mr. Scuderi, our assistant superintendent, in a meeting that we already had, and we have provided more details on that in writing to him. The second concern that I have has to do with the admission process. Also, I know this is sort of a repetitive theme for some of you, and I'm not going to go into a lot of the details of what the complaints are, but I want to point out that we have submitted also in writing to Mr. Scuderi some of those complaints that we have on the admission process and why we feel that the low enrollment in the TO bilingual class has to do with the admission process. So what I'm here in my last minute, I do want to propose something. I don't want to come here and just complain. I want to tell you that I think it's important for us to take a look at what Superintendent Evans has proposed as a heritage program for not this year, but the following year. We want to be able to be part of that discussion. And so if we can be part of that discussion and see what is it that is being proposed and be part of the shaping plan, that would be great for us. We also want you to leave on the table the idea of having the bilingual program at Thousand Oaks. We feel that if we're part of that enrollment process in some way and we actually are able to improve the enrollment process, we can find the kids that are needed. And this is an ongoing discussion on, well, are those kids still there in our district that can fill in those places from the bilingual program? And I think we just want to be part of that discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. De Oro? followed by Nayeli Camacho.
Hello and good evening. My name is Eva Camarena de Oro, and I'm a resident of Berkeley. I have 2 school-age children, ages 5 and 11. My 11-year-old currently homeschools because she has dyslexia, while my youngest attends the TWI two-way immersion program at LeConte Elementary. I was surprised to learn that the Thousand Oaks bilingual program is closing due to lack of native Spanish speakers in the district, since I have spent the last couple months fighting to appeal the arbitrary decision that my native Spanish-speaking daughter, according to BUSD, actually cannot speak Spanish, and was therefore denied the opportunity to continue in the TWI class at LeConte. We are also aware of another TWI TK classmate who is a native Spanish speaker who was denied the ability to continue at LeConte for kinder after requesting to do so during the admissions placement process. Both of these children of Latinx descent who speaks fluent Spanish were placed in the two-way immersion TK program at LeConte this past academic year by the admissions department without us requesting it, and of course have only been exposed to pre-literacy skills and kindergarten readiness goals entirely in Spanish. As you all know, our TWI at BUSD is a 90-10 model where the majority of the day, 90% or more, is entirely in Spanish. It has been great for my daughter who has learned Spanish phonemes and letter and number identification. For all intents and purposes, she would have crossed the barrier to put it all together towards literacy in the coming year. The disruption and repercussions of my child who now faces due to this arbitrary defective Spanish language testing process for native Spanish speakers is disheartening. It still astonishes me that a district would choose to put Spanish-speaking children at a disadvantage. I am sure that no educator would think it is a good idea to eliminate any benefit TK can provide by putting them into a full English program when they have only learned in Spanish. Obviously, this will harm their initiation to literacy and their education by placing them in a monolingual environment for 1 year and then moving them to an English-only environment the next at such a critical time in their introduction to learning. My intent to address this error was centered on the new bilingual test that BUSD started using this year to assess students. My daughter, whose first language was Spanish and who is a native Spanish speaker, was assessed as a beginning Spanish speaker. Interestingly enough, she is now considered to be one of only 2 girls in her class, TWI, who is totally fluent in Spanish. She appears to have been able to follow this entire school year in the classroom. We got the report cards today. She did great, and she has actually been nicknamed La Reina del Español by the support staff at LeConte for her Spanish fluency compared to her peers in her class, many who are non-native Spanish-speaking children and will be returning to TWI next year instead of her. I read that one of the reasons being given for the consolidation of the Thousand Oaks bilingual program was that there was not enough interest in the program from native Spanish speakers or bilingual children. I urge you to consider that the admissions is arbitrarily denying access to these programs by asserting Spanish speakers are such due to inaccurate testing. I encourage you that this new assessment test be examined for accuracy and equity, because I assure you at this time, it is neither accurate nor equal. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Camacho, followed by Stephen Murphy.
Buenas tardes. Sí. Claro que sí.
Good evening.
Buenas tardes, Distrito Escolar. Solamente les quiero comentar que yo soy una hablante hispana, como se pueden dar cuenta.
I want to just comment that I am a native Spanish speaker.
Tengo 2 niños, uno está actualmente en el programa Thousand Oaks, en programa bilingüe.
I have 2 children, one of them who is in the bilingual program at Thousand Oaks.
El que sigue no fue admitido porque no cumplió los requisitos que tienen estandarizados.
My second child was not admitted into the program.
Yo solamente quiero comentar que es de mi interés el que el distrito cumpla la promesa de los 2 años que se le hizo a Thousand Oaks.
I want to hold you accountable to meet the promise that you made. ¿Para los 2 años? Sí. That involved 2 years.
Para continuar el programa que ustedes habían prometido a lo que
to continue the program for the next 2 years.
Y que en este año que nos queda, como Tosa Knox programa bilingüe, se nos comunique a los padres las decisiones que están tomando y que nos hagan partícipes de la decisión de cómo se va a formar el nuevo plan.
I want to ask that you also involve the parents and keep them in the loop of things and of the changes that happen as you guys make decisions.
No, realmente yo considero que ustedes están tomando esta decisión porque consideran que el programa necesita más niños.
It seems to me that the only reason that you are making this decision is based on
De que los niños, no hay suficientes niños para la...
there's not enough kids enrolling in the program.
Yo creo que si esto fuera posible, de que este año escolar que va a empezar, ustedes admitan niños de otro distrito para cumplir con el estándar que tienen, para seguir con el programa bilingüe, solo este año.
I want to suggest to you that you allow out-of-district students to come in and fill the program,
Y que en este transcurso de año nos permitan a los padres apoyarlos con lo que queremos como el programa bilingüe. No estamos diciendo que no a las opciones que nos están dando.
we are not rejecting the options that you are giving us. We are just
Solamente queremos ser partícipes de las decisiones en las que están afectando a nuestros hijos.
We just ask that you please keep us involved as you make these decisions that impact our children's education.
Yo tengo un niño que nació con labio leporino, está en terapias de habla,
I have a child who is in speech therapy,
que es el que actualmente está en Tosa Knox, y Tosa Knox le ha brindado el apoyo que él necesita.
and Thousand Oaks has been great at meeting his needs.
Yo solamente quisiera que con el segundo, que no tiene ninguna discapacidad de habla, se le diera la misma oportunidad de aprender el idioma español.
I'm also asking that my second child, who does not require any additional support, that he also be given the opportunity to be part of this program.
Puesto que yo considero de que mi niño, a pesar de tener 5 años, habla más inglés que español.
I'm sorry, I wasn't timing. ¿Es todo?
Why don't you ask her to say that last sentence
¿Puedes
again?
decir la última oración que dijiste?
Aunque yo solamente quisiera que a mi niño que no tiene esto se le diera la oportunidad de seguir con el español, puesto que él habla más inglés.
Okay, I just want to ask that you allow my second child to please be part of the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Murphy, followed by Azucena Davila.
Hello, School Board. Stephen Murphy. I have a daughter at the Thousand Oaks program. Before that, I wanted to thank the 2 students that talked about mental health resources. For somebody who works with women in interpersonal violence, childhood trauma, as we learn more and more about it with ACEs scores and that, it's if we can get mental health resources at Berkeley High School, it would just be phenomenal for the students. And I want to thank School Board Member Appel for really leading the charge on that. I think it's great. And for somebody who has 2 daughters, and a son who will be in the schools, they're going to experience potentially traumatic events, and to have those resources available is just phenomenal. So thank you for your leadership on that. Also, thank you for bringing this issue up and putting this on for the agenda of the Thousand Oaks program tonight. Really appreciate that, for putting it on as an informational item. We fully appreciate the problem. We understand BSEP. We understand you have to fill these classes. We know that. We also fully understand that this is not probably the program that you're going to fund for under-enrollment. I think we also totally appreciate that also. And we appreciate that there's a changing demographic in Berkeley. We know that this is a real challenge for you to try to kind of figure out how to skin this cat. This is a tough one. I think that we should all really appreciate that this is tough. I also know that you see us to a certain extent as protecting our piece of the pie, and you have a lot of people who come to want to protect their piece of the pie in front of you all the time. I know that. So I appreciate that. I just make a few very specific asks. First is that we slow down, and that we're deliberate, and that we explore all the options out there for us. We look at other districts and see what they're doing, and we don't just simply say, LeConte's taking care of this. This is the type of program we want. We don't have the resources. Let's look at the cost, and let's be really creative about how we look at this. The second thing is I do want all of you to be mindful and attentive to the testing. I wonder if there's an issue regarding the testing where we're ignoring potential native speakers who are really native speakers who aren't actually getting into the program because they're testing out. So please take a look at the test. You're all brilliant people. I know some of you personally, And I know you're very, very smart. And if you look at this and you spend some time with it, I know that you'll be able to figure out yes or no regarding the testing. So I ask that. I also ask that we really think about rebranding this program or redesigning it. I know right now you can't let students in unless they're native speakers based upon, I forget the name of the charter or how it's written in this particular mandate, but we look at potentially rebranding this program and looking at and being creative about how it is that this program could possibly exist without it being really, really expensive, because I know that's also on your mind. Because just like these mental health programs, they are expensive, I know. And the resources here, resources there. This is a fantastic, fantastic program with a lot of tradition. So let's just slow down and be really, really mindful, and hopefully we can be part of and partner with you in that creative process, okay? So thank you, Ty, for your time, and thank you for putting this on the agenda. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks, and we'll continue to try to creatively work with you on this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Davila, and then our final speaker will be Ariana Castro.
Good afternoon. My name is Susana Davila. I am the third grade bilingual teacher at Thousand Oaks Elementary School. First of all, I would like to thank Pascual and Beatriz for taking the time to come and meet with us, and really think about, our program and what the future of our program is. These last couple of days, I, myself, teachers, parents, we've been, reflecting a lot on the future of our program, our beloved program, and like you guys have mentioned too, it has such a strong history, and we do want to do the best for our community, and thinking of, our families and our students, because I, as a teacher, that's what's most important for me, thinking about them and just, the future of them and making sure that they're taken care of. I would like to remind, the board of a promise that was made to us last year, and that is of giving us 2 years of a bilingual program. 2 years, this year and the following year to really look at the ELD master plan and make the changes that are needed because of our demographics, because of the changes that are happening in Berkeley. And also, so what I'm asking is to give us that year that was promised to us, Give us that year to really look at the master plan. Give us that year to look at that idea of this heritage program at Thousand Oaks Elementary School. What would that look like? And like a lot of parents have said, which, I think that's, one of the things that we now reflect on back and think is like, we didn't really involve parents in the decision of the combo classes, and the teachers, like, we're really like taking responsibility for that, parents need to be heard. These are their kids. So give us that extra year. Run a full kindergarten class at our school. Give us that year to look at the ELD master plan. Give us that year to really look at what this heritage program would look at our school. And also give, these 8 incoming families that are coming into the program the opportunity to be in a full classroom. One of our worries is that, when these 8 new families come to Thousand Oaks, what will happen to them? One of the reasons that the combo classes were agreed upon as teachers is that it would give us the opportunity to continue to run our bilingual program. But if we're saying that we're going to end our bilingual program, then what will happen with these 8 families? What would happen with these 8 children? Let's really think about them and what is the best way to really support them. And if they will be the last group at Thousand Oaks, giving them, the full experience and the full support that is necessary for them. So again, I'm really asking you guys to think about giving us that extra year. Just run a full kinder class and give us that extra year to really think about with time, because I definitely feel that we have rushed into making these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Castro?
Good evening, board. My name is Ariana Castro, and I'm a parent of a first grader in the Thousand Oaks bilingual program. So today, I'm just here to voice my concern for these proposed combination classes, and it seems that this is the reality of the program, and I just come to ask that our teachers and our students get the support that they need so that they don't fall behind academically. My son has had problems with math and reading for the first 2 years while he was at Thousand Oaks. I just want to make sure he does not fall behind because of these combination classes. I also want to ask that you involve parents and teachers in the defining what the new heritage program is going to look like at Thousand Oaks, because I think that our input was not really considered when you guys decided to discontinue the program at Thousand Oaks. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that now concludes the public comment period. And thank you to everyone who came to speak. Now there's an opportunity to hear from our unions. Are there any union representatives? Ms. Phillips? Ms. Campbell, are you speaking? Okay. Ms. Phillips, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, school board members, Dr. Evans, and to our listening public. My name is Paula Phillips. I'm the president of the Berkeley Council of Classified Employees, and I represent the district's rank and file non-supervisory staff. I'm here tonight to talk about the Classified School Employee Pathway to Teaching program. So first, I want to thank the district for the work that it put into designing the program, but I also want to address a couple of things that the union has concern with. In speaking with our members that have gone through the program successfully and unsuccessfully, one of the key obstacles was financial assistance, and this program will provide the financial assistance. But the other obstacles that weigh heavy on them are their obligations to their families. There's the time, the money to keep food on the table, as well as passing the CBEST exam as well. So in addition to the financial support, our members will also need support to attend classes either during work time or after work. A lot of our members have struggled with reducing their hours in order to participate in classes that occur when they work, and sometimes the district is flexible with that, and sometimes it hasn't been. Usually it's taken a conversation between myself and Dr. Evans in order to make it happen, and I do appreciate his support in those areas. So what we're looking for in this program is the flexibility of the district to allow classifieds to work part-time, job share, or take leave to focus on their studies. Key to implementing this program will be the support, whether it be peer assistance support, networking with teachers, networking with peers in the program. But when you look at the studies on pathway to teaching programs, most programs say it's been reported that the participants say key to the success of them becoming a teacher has been in that peer assistance support. And so I want to make sure that you are aware of this and that, you know, there is a focus on that and that we provide something in that area. Also, if we're going to provide tuition assistance to classified school employees to obtain a teaching credential, why would we not guarantee a teaching position for them? And that is something that I believe is missing in this program. There's no guarantee that they will have a job once they finish the credential. There are opportunities for them to be interns in the program or to do their student teaching when they're close to completing, and our district has provided that. But key to the success of this program, if we are to grow our own, is to employ them after they've completed the program. So that's all I have to say tonight, and I appreciate, again, I want to make special mention to Dr. Sadler and all of her hard work on this program as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Okay, now, is there any representatives from our district committees here?
Hi, good evening. Tasha Henneman, Chair of the PAC. Just came to say thank you and give a little just brief final comment for the year. Wanted to just share, okay, I don't know where my notes are, so I'll just talk off the top of my head. First off, wanted to just say that it's been a pleasure to serve with the PAC this year. It's been an amazing group of parents. The thought partnership and the thought leadership that's happened in the PAC meetings has been really exciting. And even for parents who couldn't attend the meetings every night, just the feedback and the commentary and the commitment to the group was really just superb and excellent. We're really excited. Thank you, Dr. Evans, for your feedback. I just received it today, so I didn't get to thoroughly read through all of it, but what I did peruse through, I did see a couple highlights that I wanted to just mention, which is that we're really excited that the board is committed to supporting the math interventions that have happened. That was a big topic for this year that came up, and just particularly with the schools where there's the highest number of unduplicated students, that was just a really important intervention that we know is still sort of being worked out with all of the trends and changes of Common Core and the professional development that still needs to happen. And the education for the parents, myself as the parent of a second grader who cannot help my second grader with math, at least addition I can, but maybe not subtraction. We know just the changes and difficulties that exist with sort of making adjustments to math interventions. So we're really happy to see that there will be those additional supports, as well as the commitment to continuing to support the hiring of staff and faculty of color. It's really important to have those adult and student interactions so that there can be relationability, connectability that transfers over to, we know, positive outcomes for students later down the road. So I just really wanted to thank the partnership with the district. I want to thank Pat Sadler and Mina and all of the wonderful supportive staff that came to all of the meetings and helped us to facilitate and provided the support so that we could even get together, be it childcare and other resources made available to the families to convene. And just also wanted to say, in addition to you, Dr. Evans, just the timeliness of your feedback was really important. You still had 48 hours plus to that you could have waited, but you didn't. So it was really important for all of us to know that. So, you know, that's important, you know, just to know that you guys are hearing us out, you're responding, and, you know, parents are really giving of their time. So to have that feedback in a timely manner is really important. And so lastly, I just say, let's continue to partner. Let's continue to make sure that we can have avenues to work together to really provide these important interventions that the LCAP funding allows for. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Henneman. Thank you for your services as chair of this committee.
Of course.
It's a critical committee. Your leadership is critical to its success, and we're all just grateful for your service.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank my co-chair, Michael Gray, and also Mimi, and many other parents who were instrumental. Certainly was a team effort. So
Well, please pass
thank
along
you.
our gratitude to all of them. Thank you.
I will. Thank you so much.
Okay, now we'll hear comments from board members and the superintendent. Director Sylvie?
I just wanted to say thank you again to the district and to the board for having me as a school board member. I'm going to be leaving a bit early tonight. I have my last finals tomorrow, so I need some sleep. But I wanted to say thank you again, and thank you all for coming. I'll see you guys at graduation. Yeah.
Who's next?
Well, actually, I need a minute.
I just wanted to let the thousands who are watching know that this year I will not be at Berkeley High graduation, unfortunately, because of personal conflict. But I wish everyone a happy graduation, and I am sure the event will go well. And Principal Schwang, good luck on Friday.
So my last office hours of the summer will be this Saturday at 10:30 at Cafe Leila, which is on San Pablo in Delaware, pretty much across from the adult school. So, and I buy anyone who comes a cup of coffee if they would like, or a cup of tea, so please come. I will not be at the last board meeting of the year. I have what is the 50th and probably last of the Patterson family reunion. It's been going on since the late 50s, and the last of the direct descendants, and my great aunt, who is 99 this year, will come, and it's quite possibly the last time I'll have a chance to see her. So I will be in Virginia, in the DMV, the District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia area. I also just want to say a couple of words, is that I have had the privilege of being part of our student attendance review boards, our SARB boards, for the past few weeks. And I just want to really show my appreciation to everyone who's been part of those. The staff, Susan Craig, Aisha, counselors at Berkeley High, Merlin Edwards from Celia Berkeley Mental Health, Martha from Berkeley Youth Alternatives, as well as the parents and the students who show up. It is truly one of the most amazing things that I have witnessed in this district. You know, parents come in, families come in, needless to say, not happy that they got called in because their kid is missing more than 10% of school, and they feel called on the carpet. And the process by which it really is about what can we do, you know, what's going on, that your child's not going to school, that you're not going to school, and we're here to find solutions. And at the end, sometimes there's tears all around. But it is, I think, something that is one of the finest things that I've seen this district do since I have been on the board. And I encourage, if you are called to SARB because of students, attend. It's not what you think. And for staff that might be reluctant when students are missing more than 10% of school to call a SARB hearing, that it's a very restorative process. Culmination was that I actually went to the truancy court graduation today, and that is for families that the SARB process still wasn't enough to support them, and it gets actually referred to the district attorney. And we had 4 families that graduated from that program, which means that their record is completely erased, that they ever, were taken to court by the DA. And again, it was obviously a very restorative process, and family members would say, I didn't appreciate getting the DA to come to court, but in fact, it's what I needed. And we've had kids that went from missing 30% of classes to just missing a few days in a whole school year. So that was a very interesting process too. So anyway, it's rare that I have been so moved by a process, and I appreciate the fact that I have been able to be a part of it and seen it work. And I just want to give my thanks to all the parents and students who were bold enough to trust that the district really did have their best interest at heart, and to the staff that showed. And I also forgot principals come too. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks. I'm going to go next. Lanti, thank you for being here tonight. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for participating on the board for the last 2 years, last year and this year. And I know you're moving on to bigger and brighter things, but I want you to remember the voice that you had on the board. And I remember last year advocating for the students, particularly the African-American students. So as you move on, think of yourself as an advocate, think of yourself as a civil rights fighter, think of yourself as a leader. And that's what I'll remember most when you leave us. So thank you.
Alante, on behalf of the board, we have a plaque for you, and we would like to take a picture with you.
You guys go in the middle. Wherever the middle is.
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Director Keyes, do you want to say anything?
No, I'm speechless.
He's speechless. Okay. Director Leva Cutler. Oh,
Good evening. I just have a couple of things to say. First of all, I wanted to thank Abby and Ruby for their presentation. I was really pleased to hear that that the Youth Commission had been working on a response to kind of stigma and lack of access to mental health services at the high school. So I'm impressed by their proposal, and I hope we'll give it some consideration. I also wanted to just give an update that we've had some testimony in the last month or 2 months about the all-gender multi-stall bathroom request that's come from the Committee of Parents and Teachers who are working to make our schools more welcoming and inclusive for transgender and genderqueer students. And so I just wanted to report that it's my understanding that members of the administrative staff did meet to discuss this request and are moving forward on a plan to respond to that request with an assessment of our facilities and a plan for, and kind of learn a little bit more about how it's been rolled out in other places and a plan for, with a goal towards implementation. So I'm really proud of the district to take that bold step. And I also finally wanted to say that I am going to have to cancel my office hours this month. I'm going to be down in Southern California for the next week or so at a national convention that my day job is convening, so I won't be able to see you in June. So I guess for those of you who are interested in talking to me about any issues, just shoot me an email at judyappel@berkeley.net, and I will respond, and we can find a time to meet one-on-one. Thank you.
So thank you. I want to also thank the Youth Commission, but I also want to take the opportunity to invite our board members to appoint a youth to the Youth Commission, because we have students we have vacant seats there. So I know that we have one applicant that recently applied to the Youth Commission to be appointed. So we need to recruit some people so that we can have students that came, like Abby and Ruby, to take on the issues that are important to them in our city and our schools. So I hope our board will consider that. My office hours will start again in September. However, I am always open to families and community. Email me about when you would like to meet. If you would like to talk a specific topic, I'm available, and we'll figure out a best time to meet. This is graduation week and promotion from elementary to middle school to high school, and then our high schoolers are hopefully going to college, an internship, or traveling, but most of all, being safe. I really wish safe travels and happiest graduation that we'll see this Friday at the Greek. I want to thank the Thousand Oaks parents community, and I have some of my staff also out here, so I'd like to thank them for coming out and supporting Thousand Oaks. And the patience of children also, but this is also an important process for them to see our youth and how we make decisions about our schools. We have a meeting coming up on June 20th with the Thousand Oaks community. I know I think the superintendent and President Ty Alpert and myself will be there. And I look forward to discussing further the vision that we have for Thousand Oaks and how we will all work together to find the best solution for our schools and for our students. So muchas gracias. And I'm so glad that we have Liz to help translate. You know, that also works for us, and also to make that available to our parents. So thank you. So that's all. Thank you.
All of us. I want to make a brief comment, then we'll be ready for you all, about a resolution that's on our consent calendar tonight to express the board's support for SB 607, which would disallow suspensions for willful defiance K-12 statewide. And I want to thank Director Appel for bringing this to our attention and for her work on this issue. And as her cover memo indicates, this is an important bill because this justification for suspensions, willful defiance, has been used in racially disproportionate ways in districts across the state. In our own district, in Berkeley, willful defiance is used more sparingly as a justification for suspension. And I want to clarify that when we take up this issue as it relates to BUSD policy, which we will do in the fall, it will go through our normal processes for policies, and we will hear and consider input from all stakeholders, including, if possible, teachers, safety officers, and administrators at Berkeley High. I personally do not believe that exclusionary discipline is the appropriate response to most behavior issues. However, I fully recognize that our staff on the ground in the schools need to have at their disposal meaningful alternatives that provide meaningful consequences to students who do engage in unacceptable behavior. And I think that particularly at the high school, we do not yet have those alternatives in place. And I think a discussion of our own policies needs to be paired with a serious discussion about meaningful alternatives short of suspension for students who do engage in willful defiance of teachers, safety officers, and administrators. So with that said, I just want to be clear that while we will take this up in the fall in the policy committee, the passage of this resolution is not intended to bypass our normal processes for policymaking in the district. And again, I want to thank Director Appel for her leadership on this issue.
Director, I'd like to just add that there are also another legislations that prevent preschools also from expulsion of students, and that's coming down the pipeline also. So I hope we can piggyback on those both. AB 752.
Okay. Thank you all. Now we will have a presentation.
Are we gonna move the consent calendar?
Yes, we should do that. Thank you, Director Appel.
So I'd like to make a motion to pass the consent
Is
calendar.
there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Director Appel, second by Director Leyva Cutler. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, now we will move to a recognition of the AVID graduating class of 2017. Turn it over to Dr. Sadler.
So good evening, board members, and this is an honor for me to actually be able to present an update on the class of 2017, the seniors at Berkeley High that hung in there and continued in the AVID program despite the challenges that they faced at the high school with conflicts with course options, some of them having to take it after school. But there are a group of them that we as a district should be extremely proud of. They made an end of the year video, and they actually had a celebration the other day at Longfellow. And so I'm going to share with you about 3 minutes of the video just so you can see who the seniors are and where they're headed. And then I'm going to introduce to you one of the seniors that we're going to recognize this evening.
Hello, my name is Amber Lee. I will be attending UC Berkeley in the fall, hoping to study psychology or social welfare.
Hi, I'm Ciara Ursos, and I will be majoring in politics at UC Santa Cruz.
Is Maria Sofia Carrillo Hernandez. I'm going to Wesley College, and my major is neuroscience.
My name is Taija Banks, and in the fall of 2017, I'll be attending UC Merced, where I'll be majoring in biological sciences.
My name is Michael Peck. I will be attending UC Berkeley in the fall, and my major is conservation and resource studies.
My name is Citlali Hernandez, and I'm thinking about going to UC Davis or UC Berkeley.
Potentially studying neurobiology.
Hi, my name is Isabella Ursos, and I'm going to attend SF State and major in Women and Gender Studies.
My name is Eric Linares. College I will be attending is Berkeley Community College, and I'm going to be majoring in liberal arts.
My name's Kyla. I'm going to Sacramento State, and I'm going to major in nursing and minor in Spanish.
My name is Darian Griffin. I'm going to California State University, Northridge, and majoring in biotechnology.
I'm Maria, and I'm going to UC Merced, and my major is business.
I'm Eustacio Bermudez. My college, or the college that I chose to go to, is BCC. And my major, I am undecided.
My name is Rob. I'll be attending East Bay, and the major I'll be in is criminology.
My name is Carla Mandujano. I'll be attending San Francisco State University in the fall, where I'll be majoring visual communications and design.
My name is Roberto, and I'm going to attend San Jose State University, and for right now, I'm undecided.
I'm Izzy Mara. I'm going to Berkeley City College, and I'm majoring in biotechnology.
Mariano Hernandez. I will be attending SF State University, and my major will be kinesiology.
My name is Raquel Esteves, and I will be attending San Francisco State University, and I'm majoring in criminal justice.
My name is Normani Patterson. I'm going to be attending Humboldt State, and I'm majoring in law and psychology.
My name is Ferris Muthana. I will be attending San Francisco State. I'm majoring in broadcast and electronic communication arts.
It's Rebecca Torres. My college is UC Santa Cruz, and my major is psychology.
So I'm gonna stop.
My hopes and dreams for the future is to go around the world.
It's a funny story about that young guy. When he was my student at Longfellow, we had a test irregularity on standardized testing because he did a design with his dots. And he took a picture and put it up on social media. And the state called us, and we had to do an investigation. And look at him now. And I was shocked when I saw him in the video. He was always really bright, obviously. And his design said, YOLO, you only live once. That's how he felt about the state testing. So thought we have a little humor tonight. So.
Can we make that official board policy?
I don't agree with that anymore now that I'm in my new role. So I also think there's one other piece I wanted to acknowledge before I turn it over to Amber, and that is Ms. Schwang was actually Amber's AVID teacher, and how cool is it that she now gets to be her principal and issue her diploma on Friday. So I think that's just sweet for her. And all of the students from Longfellow, yeah, many of them were Longfellow students. So I'm going to let Amber tell you a little bit about what her experience was participating in AVID starting in 7th grade.
Thank you, Ms. Sadler, and thank you, board members, for having me here. As Ms. Sadler said, my name is Amber Lee, and I will be attending UC Berkeley in the fall. I just want to say that I have been in AVID since 7th grade. I am now a 12th grader, obviously, and AVID has helped me extremely so much in the process of the college application process. In middle school, we focused on foundation and Cornell notes and binder checks and tutorials and field trips, and it was kind of boring, to be honest, but it was the foundation of what helped me in high school, and I'm guessing what will help me in college. As Ms. Sadler said, Ms. Schwang was my teacher along with Mr. Hinckley in 7th and 8th grade. When I got to high school, I was thinking about not doing AVID, but I stuck in there my 9th grade year to just see how it was. I had it a 7th period. I've had AVID 7th period all 4 years, which was a struggle because 7th period and who wants to be at school? But it's pretty cool. Mr. Chernak has been my teacher all 4 years, so we have built a really nice relationship by the time now that I'm a senior. He knows a lot about me emotionally. He knows about my family life along with my academics, and he really got to be a teacher because I had him for 4 years. along with all the students, most of the Longfellow students, a lot of the people in the video did go to Longfellow, and we have been a little knit family. I just want to say that AVID helped me in the college process by making me have a college list in 9th grade year. We had to have 10 colleges, like 4 privates, 4 publics. We had to learn about safety schools and dream schools. We learned about things that I didn't have access to. We went to a lot of college visits. We went to Dominican. We went to UC Davis, UC Berkeley, UC Merced, UC Santa Cruz. We went to most of the UCs. And overall, I've had like a positive experience in AVID. The tutors have helped me a lot. Most of them go to UC Berkeley. I attend UC Berkeley now. So it was cool for me to be able to hear stories about what it's like to be a UC Berkeley student from my tutors outside of it's kind of an academic setting. But yeah, I personally enjoyed AVID. I thank you guys for supporting AVID and everyone else that supports it. And thank you, Ms. Adler, and thank you. Thank you, Ms. Schwing, of course, and Mr. Chernak and all my other teachers.
All right. So thank you. And we have just a quick presentation for Amber, so I'm going to turn it over to Tasha. She's not here as a PAC person now, but in her day job.
Right, so I'm switching roles here, although the PAC totally loves and supports ADVID too, and I should have said that in the report earlier, but I'm here because I actually know Amber because I have a teenager who's in college, and I have a niece who's a senior who serves on the Youth Commission also, and so I've had the pleasure of knowing Amber a little bit professionally and personally, but tonight I'd like to offer this State of California Senate Certificate of Recognition from your state senator, Ms. Nancy Skinner. And it says that this is presented to Amber Lee for your demonstration of student leadership and academic excellence. And thank you for being an extraordinary example for your peers. You have such a bright future ahead of you. Keep up the hard work and go Bears. So on behalf of State Senator Nancy Skinner, we offer you this certificate and wish you the best of luck in college. And you need to keep it up so you can take her position in the future.
And one last comment. You see the color red. I'm in a sorority. Our colors are red and white, just by chance. So when you think about sororities, think about the red. All right. Congratulations, Amber.
And Amber, would you come on up here for a picture? And Ms. Schwang, can you come up as well? We will be watching Amber's accomplishments and taking credit for them for many years. Okay, now we have item 13.1.
Yes. So I see the redesign team is here. We started this journey a couple of years ago. And after much engagement with the community, a lot of engagement with the community and with the board, we're asking the board tonight to approve the redesign. Personally, I can't thank the team for your endless hours working on this. You've done an amazing job. And I know you can't please everybody, but I want to say that you've made a difference, and this redesign will make a difference for the incoming 9th graders. So I just want to let you know that I truly appreciate the hard work that you've put into this project. So with that being said, I'm asking the board to approve the redesign tonight. So if you have any questions, statements, thank yous, they would love to hear that.
Except the questions.
Except for the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. So maybe we can just sort of we'll go down the row or speak up if there's anything you'd like to say before we take a vote,
Starting with me?
if you want.
Yeah, I'm happy to thank you once again for all of the incredible work. This process has been very thoughtful, and I think, and we've said this so many times, but an example for what an example of a lot of buy-in and also flexibility on the part of the design team to respond to financial limitations and still keeping the concerns of the community and the school board, but most importantly, our students at heart. So I'm very excited to support this redesign and watch it unfold. So thank you.
I also want to thank the redesign team for all the hard work. I know it's been a hard slog in many ways, and when I look at what the proposal first was, and with kind of a much larger budget, and to where the proposal is with a smaller budget but really targeted now, and I think that it's a testament to the fact that we don't see a whole room full of angry parents or staff here, well, you can't please all the people all the time. What you have done is really going to make a difference at Berkeley High. The one thing I will say that this is a journey, it's not a destination. There is still some details to be worked out with the redesign, even for ninth grade, and so I look forward to keeping up with that part of it. You know, the devil's in the details. And so I look forward to being hopefully part of some of those discussions. I also think that while the more grandiose plan to restructure all of Berkeley High right now is not feasible, there certainly are parts of what has been discussed that need to change or needs to at least be reviewed for 10th for 12th grade. Isn't necessarily a budgetary issue or perhaps a nominal budget issue. And so I'm looking forward to how we strengthen our African American Studies program, how we open up the opportunities for all of our students in 10th and 12th grade. I look forward to hearing how we're going to coordinate our Berkeley Technical Academy with what is happening with ninth grade, so making sure that it's a consistency there, but also looking at the potential of a redesign of what we can do that is a high school redesign, not just a ninth grade redesign. And of course, when you're talking about a high school redesign, that also looks at how we can better coordinate all of our upper secondary programs, Berkeley High, the independent study program, as well as BTA, to make sure that we are supporting all of our students in the different ways that many students need to be supported. So with that, again, I just want to thank you for all your hard work. I know I have not always, I've often been a critic, but believe me, I tend to criticize those that I have the most respect and the most belief in. That they will take, that it's, if I don't think much of you, why would I bother? So anyway, job well done, and I am looking forward to now even the harder work that's going to lie ahead of all of us, and especially you. Thank you.
So I also would like to thank the staff and our staff also, who have been working to helping this be successful and making sure we had the time to plan, because I think that was very critical to giving staff the time to plan, to really think about this, respond to the questions that the board had presented to the community, the forums that you held that have always been very thoughtful. I having been part of SARB for many years and seeing most of our ninth graders come to the SARB, I'm really looking forward to how we wrap our arms around our ninth graders so that they will be successful in the next 3 years that they're going to be at Berkeley High. I think, if anything, I look forward to how the houses are going to create that kind of community and that sense of community learners for our students, and the toolkit that you're going to give them so that they will be successful in 3 years. And we won't have to see that. But at the same time, this year we have an incoming group of students that are not going to be part of the redesign. And so I hope we also keep our eye on this young, other incoming ninth graders as they enter, because they too need for us to wrap our arms around them, and so that they will be successful in schools. I also look forward to I know there's other things that we're going to have to focus on and look at, but I also welcome the redesign of the ethnic studies that includes not only African American, but Chicano studies, and perhaps gender studies too. I think we need to figure out how we create that and augment that at Berkeley High, because that will help our students, and also put the AP augmentation onto this, because I think there will be students that would be very much interested in having that in their transcripts, along with the seal of biliteracy. I think that those are things that are important to our students, and they come out much more prepared, that I believe, than any other school. So I will be looking forward to how the details come out and how we present this out, communicate this in this coming year to our community. I think it's really important right now that parents start to have that idea of what will be happening in 1819. So a good communication plan and marketing plan is really important. So thank you.
Director Keyes, did you want to?
I think I've said my sort of substantive thoughts at other meetings. I guess I will add that at some point in time, somebody in the distant future from now is going to look back and wonder sort of why we did what we did at Berkeley High structurally, and is going to want to know sort of on what basis do we determine success or not success. So I know that a lot of effort has been put in to sort of write up the basis for why these structural changes are occurring, and my guess is maybe you're already doing this, but if you aren't, documenting it such that right now, today, we look back at the small schools and say, what were they thinking, and it didn't always make sense, and what were the outcomes they wanted, that we have that to explain to 10, 12 years from now for a future board to refer to and look at in a single, concise document that sort of articulates all the justification that was presented to us in the past. So not a board directive at all, just a suggestion for the future.
Thank you. So I've been on the board now for 2.5 years, and by now I've cast many votes, not nearly as many as some of my colleagues. But this is one that I'm particularly proud to cast. And it's not because I think that the redesign will solve all of Berkeley High's problems. It's not because I don't recognize that some members of the Berkeley High community, including some who are here tonight, don't have heartfelt and genuine concerns about what the redesign will mean for their schools and for their students. And it's not because I'm under the delusion that this plan has unanimous support from the large and complicated ecosystem that is Berkeley High. I'm proud to cast my vote in favor of this plan because I'm absolutely convinced that it's the result of a process that has been deliberate, inclusive, guided by the best research and the best data available, a process that was led by experienced and dedicated teachers. And it was a process that was initiated because many of the professional educators in the Berkeley High community were willing to say, we need to rethink what we're doing because we're not serving all students. And this process was born out of that humility, and I think it showed every step of the way. The process that led to this proposal is not unique in the history of the district. The planning that led to our current school assignment system for elementary schools involved literally years of neighborhood meetings and town halls and research reports and board presentations. The planning for this year's BSEP measure similarly involved dozens of community meetings and research papers and staff and board meetings. So while the Berkeley High redesign process is not unprecedented, I think it is squarely in the tradition, in the best traditions of our district, and it's a model for us to aspire to in all of our work. I want to commend all the members of the redesign team, especially its leaders, Hasmig Manassian, Tamara Friedman, and Matt Meyer. I want to acknowledge that this process started under the leadership of then Principal Sam Passero and continued uninterrupted when Aaron Schwang took over as principal earlier this year. And as I said at an earlier meeting, we are all in Principal Schwang's debt for the steady and steadfast leadership she has provided to Berkeley High. Finally, I want to thank and acknowledge our district's educational leaders, Assistant Superintendent Scuderi, who shepherded this process from the perspective of the district office, working closely with Deputy Superintendent Cleveland, to ensure we didn't break the bank, rolling up his sleeves and getting in the weeds, which we didn't, rolling up his sleeves and getting in the weeds when he had to, and cheerleading from the sidelines when that was more appropriate. We're grateful for everything Pasquale has contributed to this process. And of course, finally, our superintendent, Dr. Evans, whose job I think is to ensure that the conditions are in place that allow the Berkeley Unified School District community to rise to its best self. And I think you've done that here, Dr. Evans, and I'm very grateful to you for that. Would anybody like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the redesign
Okay, motion.
presented.
Motion by Director Leyva Cutler to accept the proposal for the redesign of Berkeley High beginning in the 2018-2019 school year.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Director Pell. Can we have a roll call vote?
Director Leyva Cutler,
Yes.
Student Director Alonta Keys,
No.
Director Karen Hemphill,
Yes.
Director Judy Appel,
Yes.
Vice President Josh Daniels,
Yes.
President Ty Alper.
Yes. The motion passes. Congratulations to you all. Congratulations, Dr. Evans. Okay. We will now hear discussion item 14.1, which is a public hearing. So I will call the public hearing session open. Is there anybody here for public comment on the LCAP plan? Now close the hearing? No, but so now we hear from Dr. Sadler, right? Yes, now.
So I'm going to have Dr. Sadler not go over the entire plan, but really talk about taking into what you have given us at the last meeting of your suggestions for the 97,000. Dr. Sadler actually had a chance to meet with the PAC, the EAC, and DLAC as well to review what we're thinking about in terms of the $97,000. But before she starts, I do want to say this year for our PAC, you guys have done an amazing job, and I do want to thank the leadership. I want to thank Tasha for her hard work, and also Dr. Sadler for leading that. In terms of the questions, and I say this to Josh, that thank you so much for that policy. I think I can pretty much read it, say it verbatim, by heart. I know it because you made me learn the policy and the rules, and I think we did make we were able to answer all the questions. And I want to say, Dr. Sadler, thank you for pinning me down on Friday with these questions, and also Leah, who has worked tirelessly with us with answering these questions. So I just want to acknowledge her as well. So thanks.
Can you switch it? Okay, so good evening. I'm just going to briefly go over, I just have 3 slides. I'm going to just give a little snapshot around the finances for LCAP. So as you know, LCAP has 3 explicit goals, and based on our recommendations that will be in our final LCAP plan that we will present for approval on June 28th, for goal 1, you can see that our recommended expenditure is $2,171,503. Goal 2 is $1,152,026, and goal 3 is $1,493,295, and then the additional expenses are our indirect, our evaluation cost, and our variance, because it's a little challenging for us this time of year to know accurately how much each of the actions or services are going to cost us because we don't know who will actually staff them or be the service provider. And based on where they are on the salary schedule, or if we have to go to an outside consultant, it could fluctuate a little bit. So we always put a little bit in a variance this time of year. And so the total projected budget for LCAP for 17-18 is $5.2 million, which you see there. And so at our last presentation, we talked about the new revenue, which was about $97,000. It's a little bit less when we take the indirect out. But what we heard your feedback, and we heard the intentional focus around math, especially at the secondary level. But also we heard your intentional focus around the schools with the high unduplicated student populations. And so when we looked at the data, based on the CalPADS information from the first Wednesday in October of 2016, these were the 3 schools that had the highest number of unduplicated students. Longfellow had 311 students, Thousand Oaks had 297 students, and LeConte, I believe, had like 281. Don't quote me on those numbers, but that's what I remember. And so in looking at the needs of the schools and in trying to figure out how to distribute the funding to really make a difference around math, we determined that 0.4 should go to Longfellow, and then Thousand Oaks and LeConte should get the equivalent of a 0.2 FTE, which is about $21,000. And there will be some money that we haven't allocated, and we hope to use that money to identify intervention materials. We'd like to find something that's technologically based that will give us ongoing data as the students progress through the intervention. We also hope that the students who, at the elementary level, who are assigned to do the math intervention won't necessarily require it all year, but that there would be a model that we refer to as flexible grouping, and that the students will come in and out of the intervention, as needed. And so our next steps for approval with LCAP, one was to respond to the PAC comments within 15 working days. And we did that in 13 days, so we're happy about that. And then the final LCAP document will be produced on June 20th and put in the board packet for approval on June 28th. And on June 29th, we will submit the approved LCAP to ACOE for final approval. And that's it.
Thank you, Dr.
I know I was
Seba.
only supposed to do one slide.
Are the answers and questions on the website now?
Yes, they were posted today.
Oh, okay, great. Questions, Director Hempel? Dr. Hempel?
So anyway, I really appreciate all the work that's been done around the LCAP, and I know that a lot of thought, and we have had some discussion on where to do with some of the additional funds. But I have to admit that I am deeply concerned about the lack of a 9th grade Math 1 summer school for this summer. I would say a lot of the students that I've seen in SARB the past few weeks are 9th graders, and they are all flunking Math 1. And I've heard from other families that we have a large number of students who do not successfully pass Math 1. And while they will have the opportunity to take Math 1 again as sophomores, it's not clear to me that the pattern won't repeat itself. It certainly has in the past when it was algebra, that those students that failed Math 1, or those who failed 9th grade math and took it in 10th grade, failed it in 10th, sometimes failed it the entire time they were in high school. So I consider this a crisis, particularly because this year's 9th grade class is the class of 2020. And while I really do believe in front loading, and it's not that I disagree with the money that we're providing for the elementary school math, for example, I'm just really concerned that, we may have 30, 40, 50 students that we may be losing without the opportunity for them, even if they end up taking Math 1 again as sophomores, that summer school could be more of even a pre-teaching for them, so that if they do take it again, they will have had that basis. And particularly after a summer of not being in school, whatever skills that they did get from Math 1 in 9th grade are likely to have evaporated. So I am just, I don't want to vote against a whole plan just because of that, but for us not to be able to come up with some money somewhere for summer school this year, I just, it makes me very, very concerned.
But I think I wanted just clarification perhaps with our assistant superintendent in terms of it's a policy that 9th graders cannot enroll for the summer school. It's more of a policy.
Well, we don't have the resources. The funding that we use for summer programs that we offer currently, we use BEARS, basically finances our K-5 program. And for the middle school program, we're using Title I. And Berkeley High School doesn't receive Title I funding. And I think a few years back, we lost the funding that we used historically for summer school. So we only offer summer school per the LCAP as well for our students in 11th going into 12th grade. So they'll be on target, hopefully, to graduate.
Other comments?
And unfortunately, by that time, for some, that's really too late.
Vice President.
I'm really into this, so forgive me for taking a little bit of time. So first off, for those who are tracking this, there's a new template, a new format for how the LCAP looks, which required additional effort. But next year, rather than a whole new plan, that will basically be a modification of the existing document. So hopefully the amount of work that goes in and the ability to read it will improve next year compared with this year. In addition to what we see is in the attachment, my understanding, Dr. Sadler, is that we will also include the executive summary, which is in both English and in Spanish, in the final document. And there will be a table offering our explanations around school-wide and LEA-wide actions and services.
Correct.
Okay. I do want to encourage those who are here and the thousands who are watching to take a look at the plan summary, which is the first section of this document, and or the executive summary. If you want to read more, go for it, but I do think it is a document that helps explain it gives a key lens to our district. It's not fully comprehensive. It's not everything that we're doing. But it gives you a sense of some of the important things that we're doing and how we're doing them. On a more substantive thing, I want to keep calling out the things that I think we do really, really well in this area. And it's going to sound strange, but we do a really good job cutting. And I say that because we have a number of actions and services in our LCAP. And I don't think, and I've said this before, we should presume that those 20 or whatever number of action and services can never be improved, that they are the perfect, exact right things that we're doing. And so what that means is we need to continually question what is successful and what is not successful, or at least what is not as successful as we need to be for our kids. And so one of the things that it's in our policy, it says that the superintendent every year must recommend discontinuing or reducing one or more of the actions and services that we have in our LCAP. And that's hard to do because we're talking about programs that employ people, that serve kids, but we need to make sure that we are being as focused and as effective as we can, and this is a mechanism to help do that. And so last year we reduced the middle school bridge program based upon data that program was not actually having a positive impact on our students, at least not a significant one. And we reinvested that money towards restorative justice counselors in the middle school. This year, we are completely eliminating the middle school bridge program, and we are also eliminating the equity TSA position. Not because we don't believe in equity, but because it has not been shown to be an effective position. And so we are then redirecting those funds into something that we hope will be more effective by looking at data, by making sure that we sort of are honest with ourselves in an open and transparent way, we practice what I think is a really challenging thing to do in a public political environment, which is to make difficult programmatic decisions, not because we have to for lack of funds, but because we believe that there are more effective ways of spending our money. And while, you know, it's still action by action, it is building our capacity as a system to do that, which I think we should be really, really proud of, because there are not many districts in the state who can explicitly point to the things that we're doing. I also want to point out, sort of as a kudos, about how we listen to our community. And that doesn't necessarily mean agree with them. It means listen to them. And so, you know, we've seen this additional focus on math, and I think that, while not exclusively due to the PAC, that is in part due to the fact that they've pressed year after year about math. And so, but I also think it's important to say that they wanted us to keep the middle school bridge program at Longfellow. And we listened, we heard it, we presented the data, and very publicly and transparently we said we disagree, and we will continue to move forward to eliminate that program. And it's not out of fear of upsetting someone that stopped us. And I think, again, that builds capacity in ourselves to continue that approach. It builds capacity within our parent and family community to understand that listening doesn't mean always agreeing. It means listening, really listening and hearing, and, you know, not always agreeing and not always disagreeing, but finding the right medium such that their input is really valued and heard. So I think those are two very clear and concrete examples of listening that, again, I think we should hold up and demonstrate to other districts about how to do it right. So those are my sort of kudo comments to staff. I do want to present a quick issue to ask the board to weigh in on, and that has to do with the way in which we reference the SBA metric in the LCAP. And I bring it up because in our previous LCAP, what it says is that the SBAC scores basically shall not go down. They shall only go up. And in this version, it says they shall go up, but it doesn't say by how much. And while I know we haven't had the board study session we want to have, I do think it's important, for at least purposes of this LCAP, to get a sense of how we want to, if at all, use the SBAC. And I will start the discussion by saying this, that if all we say is that in, say, 8th grade math, we don't want our scores to go down. If you look at our 8th grade math, 22% of our African American students show proficiency, and 20% of our special ed students show proficiency. And I know that no one in this district is comfortable with that. There is no other metric, however, in the LCAP to measure math. And so all we have on math is the SBAC. And so if all we say, if we leave it as it was last year, which is to not go down, then we're sort of, without intending to do, what we're saying is we're comfortable with that baseline. And I know that we're not. So I don't necessarily want to digress us into a full-fledged conversation around the pros and cons of standardized testing and the SBAC, but I think that on this particular narrow slice, I think it's important for us to have somewhat of a discussion about, is there a way to find a common ground forward on this one, because otherwise I think the message we send is one that we're not trying to send.
Where are we, Dr. Sadler, in the development of local middle school math assessments?
I know that Ryan Keeley has been looking at samples, but maybe Assistant Superintendent Scuderi may have an update. There is a requirement that we have. One of the indicators will be a local indicator, and there is an academic indicator. And for this year, because the dashboard is new, we just had to say that we had local assessments and we got a passing score. But moving forward, it has to be a local assessment that's going to help us support instruction and identify the gaps. So I hope that by August, he's working with a group of teachers, I believe, the first week school's out, and they're going to be looking at building some type of assessment that can be given at multiple points throughout the school year to help us have the data to put in the interventions as needed. I'm not sure if there's any other.
I mean, I think that's accurate. We'll just leave it there unless there's a more specific way.
And he's one of our TSAs that's returning, so that work will continue.
Well, I mean, I don't know if are you proposing, maybe it'd be helpful if you're proposing specifically.
Maybe I should be, so currently, if we approve the LCAP right now, or if we approve an LCAP that is similar to the draft that is in right now, it will call for an increase in SBAC scores as a way to. That could be like a 1%. It does, exactly. It doesn't say, and it could be 1%. It doesn't say. My previous conversation with Dr. Sadler that we need to be more specific, and so that staff would come back on the 28th with, specific percentage point growth that would be our goal. But what it means is that we will then, per our LCAP, be measuring success in math by the SBAC.
Yeah.
And that's something that I know, well, I'm comfortable with that. I know that the board has expressed reservations about that. And so, I mean, there's additional aspects to it, like how predictive the SBAC is compared with, say, TCWP and other things that sort of should influence a general conversation. But given what's before us is language that calls for an increase, which is different than in the past. And so if we're comfortable with that, that's fine. There's no need for discussion. But I wanted to highlight it to make sure that it was clear that this is a change. This is a situation where we are, at least as a district, if not on a school by school or grade by grade or class by class basis, saying that the SBAC matters.
Well, saying that the scores won't go down is also saying that it matters. I mean, it's just it matters a little bit less than.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a spectrum. It could say the SBA could not be mentioned at all.
But it has to mention.
It has
Okay,
to.
so
We
it
have
has
to
to be
address
mentioned.
it.
So, and that actually the other thing. So so there's the LCAP, which is this document, which is locally created, and then there is the dashboard, which Dr. Sadler mentioned, which is a statewide accountability system that includes a number of state indicators, including math in grades 3 through 8. And one of the things that it looks at is basically if and I don't want to get into the conditions too much, but basically if you have a student group that is performing poorly on a number of indicators, including the math SBAC, the math assessment, then the County Office of Education is required to offer us technical assistance. So we would be deemed to be what's called level 2 support. And so even though and yeah, well, not me. But yeah, so basically what that means is that the state, regardless of what we decide,
Right.
The state believes, and frankly, the vast majority of districts as well, but the state believes that this is a valid measure of our success with respect to math. And so however we relate to it, we should just be aware that those scores will impact whether or not we are determined to need technical assistance for a particular student group in a particular area.
So in other words, regardless of what we put in our own LCAP, we're going to be evaluated and to some extent held accountable based on their SBA scores, whether we want to be or not.
Yes, that is very true.
So in terms of our own LCAP, which we have to mention SBA, we can either say, if I understand what you're saying, what we've been saying is the scores won't go down. That's about as minimal an investment in the scores as we could make. Yes. We could say what we're saying now, which is the scores will go up, but not by a specified amount, which is kind of middle of the road. Or we could say that our math scores will go up by 10%.
Yeah, I would urge strongly that if we're going to say that they're going to go up, we should be specific. But you're right, that is an option that the board could direct to be included.
Right, because if we say we're going to go up by 10%, and we have a huge gap already at the starting point, we're saying we're going to go up by 10%, but we're still going to have the gap. So I think we need specific measures for specific subgroups. And what the dashboard tells us is that African American students and students with disabilities were not as successful on SBA, because that's the measure we have right now. They have the orange or the red circles. And so when I went to the county for feedback, I was told that I had to explicitly address that in LCAP and be able to show which of our actions and services we have in there to increase services for those particular subgroups.
To increase services, but the county didn't say that we have to say, or did the county say that we have to tell them what % on the SBA scores?
No, it's for us to set the measure, but currently what our measure says is that we will make growth, but it doesn't address the gap.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be dense, but what gap are we talking about? Are you talking about the achievement gap?
Yes, the gap between different subgroups.
Oh, okay.
We have a blanket, we plan to increase by 5% or 10%, but we didn't call out the specific subgroups.
So I guess we sort of have a range of options, but I think what Dr. Saller's saying is that if all we say is we need to increase our scores, there's nothing explicit in that talks about closing the gap between student groups. Because
your mic, Judy.
So just to cut to the chase, so we could say we want to close the gap by, or the gap between X and Y students will be closed by X% per year.
Yes.
That would be a way that we could.
Yeah. The way that we've done it for other metrics is we say all students shall be at X%, and the student subgroups, the student groups that are far below that sort of average, need to grow by 5% a year. And so so basically it's like this, and then, so there, I mean, how you structure it, I think the question really for the board is, do we want to keep what we had last year, or do we want there to be a call for an increase? And if we want to call for an increase, then I think we should leave it to staff about what that increase looks like, just because that's the sort of overarching policy decision. But I think that's really what, most fundamentally, I think the board should weigh in on.
Okay, so I appreciate you bringing this up. So, yeah, go ahead, Director Pell.
So I'm curious to know what you think, Director Sadler, and if this has come up, if this was discussed in the PAC, because I'm compelled by that. I don't know if we, I want to be realistic, I guess, but I'm intrigued by the idea of really addressing the gap specifically in this around math, although I am, it's frustrating that we don't have a better local indicator that we can use, like we do at the high school. In the high school we have the formative tests, but so what do you think? Because I know that you share the values and the passion of the board in closing the achievement gap. So do you have a recommendation?
So our baseline, the first year that we gave SBAC, all students, the percentage was 53%. EL was 10%. Low social economic students was 31%. African Americans 14%. Latino students were 36%, and students with disabilities were 7%. So I don't have the data in front of me, but I know we made an increase year 2, but we still have a wide gap. So I think my recommendation would be is that we make a goal for increased proficiency for the targeted subgroups, which are unduplicated subgroups, as well as the subgroups that this county says we have to address, which would be African American and students with disabilities. Yeah, and it may be we would make a 5% gain as opposed to looking just at an overall gain.
And what happens if we don't do it?
Well, either way, I believe we're gonna, if we still have the red and the orange for students with disabilities and African American,
Yeah.
we will get targeted assistance from
Josh?
Yes.
Which we actually get for free anyway. So I support I support that.
So let me say why it makes me really uncomfortable. Although I appreciate your comments and your thoughts. I don't think that anything we write in here is going to change our practice. I don't think saying that we want to increase test scores on the SBA by 5% for African American students is going to give us a greater commitment to equity or actually have us place a greater focus on African American students in math proficiency in middle school. Instead, I think it's going to give us classroom teachers and principals. It's going to put pressure on them to increase those scores in a way that focuses not necessarily on actual math understanding or proficiency, but getting the scores up on those tests. It's the problem with high-stakes testing in general. To me, I don't know why we would increase the stakes of the tests beyond what the state is requiring, which is already part of the new dashboard. We're already going to be held accountable for how we do on the SBA. Again, whether we like it or not, putting in specific targets in the LCAP that we don't have to put in will, I think, have the effect of unduly emphasizing the test in those classrooms, and I think that's what those of us who are concerned about high-stakes testing are concerned about. It's not about the testing or the assessment, it's about the high-stakes part of it.
So can I respond to that? Because I hear what you're saying, but I truly do believe, that there should be something in there to increase the percentage for our targeted groups. If nothing else, there's an expectation that's in there for us that we believe that kids can meet that expectation, that translate into what we will do, what we will provide for those students that need that assistance, and it helps us to be targeted in terms of the instruction for those kids. And I think that from what I've seen from SBAC, when they give us the data, the reports are so helpful because it narrows in on what skills that kids need to master. And so I do like the SBAC in that regards. And right now, we don't have, our informal assessments are not our district assessments do not give us that type of data to really target the type of intervention that we need for those students.
Well, that's kind of confusing to me because the SBAC scores don't come out until the next year. I mean,
No,
they
we get
don't
them over the
impact.
summer.
You can
Yeah,
look
but
at-
they don't for that student in that year.
They don't inform instruction
for that
the current
student, but for in general, yeah. I mean, I share.
Well, they can't because of what Director Pell just said. The teacher who's teaching that student doesn't get the scores until.
But those scores can be shared.
Well, I mean, for me, I share a lot of your concerns about high stakes testing. I think I just don't want to lose the goal. Since we don't have an alternate measure, these numbers are really alarming, and I don't want to send the message that it's not that I want to send the message. I think we have to hold ourselves accountable to the kind of interventions and extra instruction and the kind of support that Karen was talking about to really focus in on the math. And I think we're doing that. We're investing in math instruction and supports, and so we should it's really, we should, I don't know, we have to have a way to gauge that. And I guess I'm kind of, I'm between a rock and a hard place because I agree. I don't think the teachers like the high stakes testing. I don't think we should be teaching to the test I think the SBAC as a way of gauging math proficiency is very odd because it's all typed in. But I still do feel like in this situation, given how poorly we've scored, we have to have a measure for improvement.
But do you think?
So what would you say as an alternative?
Well,
do you suggest? As an alternative, just say it increases,
or does it? What it currently says doesn't decrease. I would leave it as it is. I would leave it as if that's the most minimal weight to the SBA that we can give Dr. Sadler, then that's what I would be in favor of. Because let me just like Director Hempel, does anybody think that our math instruction will improve if we're telling teachers their African-American kids need to get 5 points higher on the SBA? Do we actually think that?
I would hope not, but I also think that, I don't know.
So I would, I guess, answer it this way, Mr. President. We are going to be investing in 3 new math, pilots basically in 3 schools. And right now we have no way of measuring the success of that. And so I guess my question to you is, in 3 years when you're on the board, or in 2 years when you're on the board and I'm no longer, on what basis will you decide whether to continue that investment? And on a teacher by teacher basis, there may not be, I think its usefulness in instruction has to do with what a teacher sees in their incoming class, for example, or what a teacher sees in broad patterns over the course of 3 years, that for some reason all my kids never know this math concept at the end, right? And then how we suggest, it doesn't replace the need for formative assessments. It doesn't replace the need for other PD. And I also think that more generally, if our SBAC score is going up 2% a year and Oakland's is going up 5%, we should not be congratulating ourselves for going up 2%. And the only way we know that our growth is slower than the others is by having a common assessment, which would be the SBAC. So I guess I would answer by saying, and this is Director Appel's point, I think that we need some way of measuring our investment in math instruction. And so whether a teacher is going to change their practice for next year, probably not. But will we as a district make decisions based upon our SBAC scores? I think the answer is yes. And I think that if we set meaningful goals in terms of growth targets, I think that will then say, we did hit the 3% growth target, for example, and therefore our investments are great. Or we didn't, and therefore we need to reconsider whether or not that growth is, either the target is too ambitious, or the action is not going to get us there. So I guess that's how I would, as one board member, would answer that query.
Well, go ahead, Director Hempel.
Obviously not everything that is measured counts, and everything that counts is measured. But I think what we're hearing for me is, we don't have another way of measuring progress. And this idea of teaching to the test, to me, is a red herring, because this has never been, ever been, despite what some people have said, the policy of this district or the practice of this district. If you are teaching well, that will come out in the assessment. And I mean by teaching well, that means standard-based teaching, supported by professional development, and then that should raise the scores. If it doesn't, and you have an assessment that allows you to look in general around trends and areas of common issues, for example, if kids don't know their number sense in 2nd grade, then that's where you put more PD. If you do not have a common assessment to be able to find out that kind of data, you don't know that other than anecdotal data. And I get rather upset when I hear this about teaching to the test and high-stakes testing, because until the same folks who say that start boycotting the SAT, I really don't want to hear it, because that is high-stakes testing at its prime, in which Black and brown kids do not do well, and in fact has been proven over and over again is not a prediction of how well those students do in upper and higher education. But yet, that high-stakes testing is accepted in this district, and in fact, people literally teach to the test and spend thousands of dollars on SAT exams to bump up scores that have absolutely no relationship to the actual knowledge that those students have. So to me, it's a red herring. This is the only assessment that we have. It is ludicrous to invest money into student support without having some way of measuring progress and determining those areas where the investment isn't working, needs to be altered. And so I just, I'm quite frankly just, if we had a district assessment, then it would be a different story. But we do not, and we're not going to have one for a year or two. And I think it is a mistake not to set some bar of progress.
Suggestion, given that this is just a discussion, and I'm sorry, Beatrice. I was going to suggest you poll the board for direction.
So just for, in terms of my feedback, in terms of this, I think it's important to call it out. I also think if you expect by the end of August to have this assessment, it's not going to, then we'd have something also to compare it to say that our students are doing well when we do our assessment, but when they do take the aspect there, the results are not there. But, not all students test well. And we know that that's a system, and so if we know we're measuring our students by their progress on a regular basis, then we have something to compare it to in terms of it's not just about the test, but it's also about how students, respond to testing also. So I think it's a comparison that is important to also show up. And I also think that families want to see how their students fare, and so that results, it's important, especially those students, the targeted population of English language learners and our special ed, because I look forward to how we are going to better support those students in their math based on their language and based on those target groups. And especially our special ed students, I haven't heard how we are going to do that better. And that's probably something that I think a lot of families are very interested in hearing, how we as a school district are going to address our special ed students through our LCAP. So I would be supportive.
So I'll get to your suggestion, Judy. I just want to respond to a couple of comments. So very respectfully, I guess I disagree with all of you. Yeah. No, it's true, and I'm glad that Vice President Daniels brought this up. So a couple of things. So first of all, parents will see their scores of their kids who take the SBA, because nothing about this is whether parents are informed of their students' progress on the SBA if the parents feel that that's an appropriate measure. Nothing about this affects whether the state will look at our SBA scores and evaluate us according to our SBA scores, because that's part of the dashboard, right? So it's only whether in this local document that we're creating, we ourselves decide that we want to include SBA as an important measure that we care about. And I think that's the way Vice President Daniels accurately sort of framed the question. But we shouldn't. We should be clear that we're going to be evaluated by the SBA anyway, by subgroup, right?
Yes.
In the dashboard. So it's, do we want to add further high stakes to that? I have a different perspective on the SAT point, but I agree with you about the SAT. Absolutely, it's a high stakes test that, and I think you said this, Director Hempel. You can look at a graph of achievement on the SAT and socioeconomic status, and it tracks almost one-to-one. It really is a test of socioeconomic status.
It has nothing to inform instruction.
And it certainly has nothing to do with informed instruction. But to me, that's not an argument for giving more weight to the SBA, which is also a high-stakes standardized test. It's, to me, neither one of them should have high stakes attached to them, and that our assessments should be used to inform instruction. Now, to the point that we need to measure our progress in some ways, I think that's the really difficult question. I agree with that. And I really want to urge us to develop local math assessments, particularly at the middle school. I know that's been a challenge for us, and it's not for lack of trying. We just need to continue that work, because that will solve, I think, some of the concerns we have. I think saying we need to measure it, and so we need to take this test that a consortium has given us that has only been in existence for a couple of years, puts a lot of weight in that test. I think the research is sort of mixed about how effective it is. There's no research that can't be on how predictive it is of any success. So the idea that if OUSD has a 10% gain and we have a 2% gain, we really need to be concerned about what we're doing. Well, yes, if we're all 100% convinced that doing well on this test is an appropriate marker of understanding the standards or predictiveness of success in high school, there are other ways we can measure how our middle school. Well, we don't, it's true, but we have our students who go on to high school. We can assess their readiness. We can develop our middle school assessments. And the last thing I'll say is, to me, again, it comes back to, is this gonna improve instruction or not, us doing this? Or, as I think, it's going to impede instruction, because it's going to put a focus on the test. And I hear you, Director Hempel, about, well, I guess I just disagree that the teaching to the test is a red herring. I've seen just in the last few weeks I've seen teachers, good dedicated teachers, saying to their students, we're going to be spending these days practicing for this test. Make sure you get a good night's sleep for this test that we have coming up. We're not going to have other instruction in the afternoon because you're all tired from the test. So it has effects on instruction. And practicing even 1 hour for a test, to me, is both an hour lost of real instruction, and if we're practicing for a test, in what way does that tell us how we're genuinely instructing students in math? If anything, we should just come in on a day that's unannounced and give them an assessment. So I've said my piece now. Thank you for letting me say it.
I'm probably stating the obvious, but I think this is, once again, underscoring the need for us to take this up in a very kind of in-depth, substantive way, because as staff, as we kind of move out, if we get to the point where we define some sort of value for the assessment, I would hate for us to be so far sort of one way and then go, I mean, having been someone trying to sell the value of state tests to high school students, it's a challenge. And so if we get to a point where we define a value for it and we really want people to participate, I hope that we can have a fairly united, well, maybe not united, but a majority, some consensus around its importance. And I just want to say, it's a process that from the educational side, I think I can speak for educational services that, you know, I don't think we in any way think that any value that could be derived from SBA, which is summative in nature, replaces the need for a formative assessment. I mean, I don't think that's the issue at all. And one of the things that I think we might have as part of that conversation with SBA is, you know, to your questions, Director Alper, is are there some benefits in the discrete skills kids learn from taking an external test that's given, you know, periodically and connected to some of the observations that Director Hemphill was pointing out about the need to ultimately take those SATs and ACTs and GREs, et cetera. But
and the AP exam as well.
So
all a preview for.
Given this is a draft, and given I think I echo your point, Mr. Skidder, of the need to set aside some time in the fall to have a more robust discussion. I mean, even this 10-minute discussion has been very, I think, healthy and robust and honest, and a mix of, you know, citing of research and personal experience and perspective. And I mean, I think it demonstrates the complexity of the issue, the respectfulness that I think we bring to this discussion, and I have confidence that wherever we will end up will be a productive and thoughtful results. I don't think we, at this point, want to get too far sidetracked down this road, and I think that Director Appel has a potential way forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're already down this road. It's fine. I think this was a helpful conversation. I think I was just going to recommend that it sounds like there's a majority of the board that would be interested in directing staff to come back with a recommendation for how else to assess or, you know, a different indicator there. And my only request there would be that if we do that, which I support, that we also make a commitment that next year we will readdress this assessment. Because I don't think it's necessarily how we want to gauge success, but since we don't have any other indicator and we're in such orange and red in this regard that we should use this for this year. So that's my recommendation. And then if you want to do a poll of the board to make sure people support that, we can. Although I think we kind of know the answer.
I think we're there. I think that's a good suggestion. And as Vice President said, we had planned to have this discussion earlier this year. We put it off for various reasons, but we do plan to schedule it. In fact, I think we have a date.
October or something.
We have a date in October scheduled for a study session on this. So we're over time on this. Is there any other burning comments people want to make? Okay, Dr. Sadler, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move to item 14.2, which is also a public hearing, which I will open about the preliminary budget. Is there anybody here for comment? Close the hearing. Deputy Superintendent Cleveland.
She has one, but when it's This does not, it keeps falling out. All the holes. Oh, no, it's not true.
Y'all ready, or, oh, no?
Yeah, we are ready, but it's not showing. It should be this one, duplicate. There we go. It's on.
Yes, I did the FN. Jay told me how to do it.
What do you have to do?
I tell you. Jay gave me some training. I've been through it before.
We can't touch that now because it's going to go off. So.
Did he say wait? Go ahead. Oh, good evening. Should I wait or get started? Okay.
This is a coup, and I'm taking over for President Alper. You may begin.
Okay. We're going to present the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2017-18, which will be brought forward to the board for adoption on June 28th, 2017. And I'm going to turn it over to Pauline Folesby, Director of Fiscal Services, to present the presentation, make the presentation.
Good evening, Pauline.
Good evening. So I will be going over the preliminary budget for 17-18, and I'm going to start off with the budget highlights. So we had a positive certification, and we project our undesignated fund balance will be $3.2 million, and that's after designations of $1.5 million. So our total ending fund balance is projected to be $4.7 million. We did have a change in fund balances since estimated actuals, and that's projected to decrease by $1.4 million. We had a significant drop in enrollment of 152 students in fiscal year 16-17, and in 17-18 we have a slight increase of 63 students. The governor's May revision, for the first time in 4 years, it included no one-time funding for discretionary funds. So there is proposed one-time funding for 18-19, but it's conditional, and this may change when the state budget is adopted towards the end of June. The budgeted expenditures incorporated in the board-approved priorities. It included all of the board-approved priorities and reductions for 17-18, and we do have a projected increased contribution to the cafeteria fund in the amount of $367,000, and that was primarily due to the revenue shortfall, mostly in the universal breakfast program. The increase for 17-18 is $250,000. Now we're going to look at the changes between estimated actuals and our 17-18 budget. The details, this is going to be an overview, and the details are on pages 21 through 24 of the budget book. So we'll look at our revenues first, and we can see that we had an increase in LCFF funding of $1.1 million, and that's primarily due to the change in gap funding and the AD increase that we spoke about earlier. We had a reduction in state funding because we no longer have the prior year one-time funding, and that was $2 million. If we look at our expenses, we have a list of the changes that there was a $3.5 million favorable variance, and that's predominantly driven by the fact that now that we are in the new measure, we have increased class sizes, which reduces our need for FTE. So we had a $3.1 million savings there. And in addition, last year we had a one-time bonus, and we eliminated the impact of that. Our classified salaries, those went up by $0.3 million, and that's because we restored the prior year vacancies, and we had other changes that's listed in the budget book. Our benefits, we had a $1.1 million negative variance, and that's due to the increase in employee pension rates, but that was offset by the reduction in our retiree benefits rates and also staffing reductions. Expenditures continued. In services and operating expenses, we had a $0.7 million change, and that's predominantly due to the elimination of prior year one-times and central office reductions. Our indirect costs had a $0.1 million change, and that's due to the reduction in expenses and the decrease in the rate. And we had other budget changes of $0.2 million, and that explains our total change in expenditures of $3.5 million. When looking at our transfers and contribution, we had a decrease in the transfers. The cafeteria overestimated actuals, and that was $0.1 million. We had a decrease in the contribution from BSEP as a result of the new measure due to the reduction of FTE for class size reduction. That's $0.7 million. But then we decreased our contribution to special education, and that's mostly due to the elimination of one-time expenses. We'll now look at the multi-year projections. So we listed the assumptions for the current year, 17-18, and the 2 out years. We can see the COLA of 1.56%, 2.15%, and 2.35%. The gap funding is listed there, and that's based on the Department of Finance's assumptions. The school services, they have a much more conservative projections for gap funding in 18-19 and 19-20. Theirs was about 30% or a little over 30%. So in looking at our LCFF funding, you can see the impact of the change in our gap funding. Our state funding remained flat, local funding remained flat. Our total revenues are predominantly driven by the change in our LCFF funding. Total expenditures, we went from $87.2 million to $89.5 and then $91.8. That's explained further in the slides, and that has to do predominantly with one-time expenditures in the prior year. Total sources and uses, some of that was impacted by board-approved or budget-approved priorities, and that's also explained further. This next slide looks at the change in fund balance, which is a significant number because we use that as the beginning point to look at our structural deficit. So you can see the change in fund balance, $1.4 million in 17-18, and in the out years is $1.1 million. We then add our beginning fund balance, and we have an ending fund balance of $4.7, $3.6, and $2.5 million, respectively. We then designate for cash, or revolving cash, and also for the commitment to program support, for BSEP program support, and
You may remember that the board approved a commitment of $2 million. This is just the unspent balance. And for this amount to be rolled back into our into revenues, we would need to have a board approval to kind of like uncommit, I guess, these funds. But we will do that. We will know the true amount when we close the books. Okay? And then we've also looked at LCAP, the supplemental grants, the unspent funds from inception to date, and that's $0.8 million. And then our share of the 3% reserve, you can see that's listed as 0.2. So our undesignated fund balance is 3.2 million, 2.1, and $1 million. And then these next slides just explain what I went through earlier. And this is a graphic representation that I thought would be helpful for you to see what our ending fund balances are looking like. You can see the gradual decline, and then you can see the components as well. So, and then deficit surplus, I kind of touched on that a little earlier. We started with a change to the fund balance, which we presented in the multi-year projections. So then we added the one-time expenditures, and you can see our structural deficit or surplus. In 17-18, we have a slight surplus, $271,000. In 18-19 and 19-20, the deficit is growing significantly. And the next slides, we just explain what the one-time expenses are. There are proposed board priorities and approved board priorities for current year and the subsequent 2 years. And then we included this section on reserves based on the recommendation from ACOE. And that's, we were told to disclose the following information based on the code section listed in this slide. They wanted to know what the minimum reserve level in terms of dollars and percentages, and we were looking at funds 1 through 8. So you can see it's 4.4 million. We're doing 3% as a reserve, as a required amount, and it's 4.4 million, 4.5, and 4.5 for the current and the 2 subsequent years. We also are required to disclose the amount of assigned and unassigned ending fund balances exceeding the minimum reserve each year. So that's what we've done in the section below. So in 17-18, it's 4.2 million, 18-19, 1.9, and 19-20, a little rounding up to $1 million. So we also have to give an explanation as to why we have a reserve over the minimum required amount, and that's predominantly to assign unspent balances based on prior board action and to protect programs from severe disruption in an economic downturn. Other considerations? Did you want to talk? Oh, okay. So our increase in pension costs continues to absorb whatever increase in revenue we're experiencing, and it is increasing the structural deficit. And based on projections of deficit spending, we'll have to face balancing the budget, and we expect significant budget reductions in 18-19 and possibly 19-20. And the Superintendent's Budget Advisory Committee, they've held meetings, and they will continue to hold meetings to discuss the cuts, proposed cuts that we think are coming down the pike. It's important to note that the multi-year projections do not include negotiated salary increases. And Deputy Cleveland is going to.
So Pauline mentioned that the food services budget took a dip in revenue, and therefore we had to increase the required contribution from the general fund for 16-17. And then we slightly reduced the required contribution in 17-18, but it's still an increase of $250,000 in the budget. So we looked at what caused the downturn in revenue. We have a report for Friday notes that's more detailed by school and by participation numbers. But it's interesting that the downturn in revenue was a result of our universal breakfast program, where we provide students breakfast, all students breakfast, and the food definitely is not a participation issue. The food is definitely eaten every day, but the count in terms of the number of free and reduced students that we submit to the state for reimbursement, that count is lower due to, one, demographics have changed over the last several years, and the other one is our accounting is more significant because the demographics have decreased the number of free and reduced students. So therefore, our effort around making sure all teachers count the students that are free, which we get $2 per day, and then we get for the reduced students we get $1.41, and the paid students we only get 26 cents. So it's really important that we properly count for the free and reduced students. The cost for us to serve breakfast is about $1.50 per student. So we have been over the years relying on the free and reduced reimbursement to cover the paid students. And as I will say, is that we do need to re-examine our universal program to see, with the change in demographics, can we continue to provide all students free breakfast and only get reimbursed primarily for the free and reduced students? And then it's going to be even more important that every student is counted by the teachers when they serve those students. And so we did find out in the month of May, after putting some effort in to try to increase the revenues, after we saw the trend with lower revenues than expected. In that month of May, we were able to bring our revenues back up to the level of the prior year revenue for the month of May. So it's definitely some effort that can be done. So basically, we looked at 4 areas in which we could improve the revenues for the program. One would be increasing fees, which the board approved tonight. The other would be providing more training and development on state breakfast counts for students eligible for free and reduced meals at every school. We've done it before, but we need to go back and make sure every teacher and the principals are working really hard to make sure that they properly account for the free and reduced students. And then we need to continue to recruit and retain food service assistants based on the restructure. It is helping. The month of May was a definite better revenue month for the district in terms of how we prepared the food to the students, which was more of a buffet style instead of pre-packaging at Central Kitchen and then sending it out. So it really had an impact. May revenues looked really good. So I think that going forward, we should be able to increase the revenues and continue the buffet style services. I will say that the estimate for 16-17 in terms of contribution may be a little lower than that once we close the books, but we wanted to be conservative. We have some lower cost, so we may be able to reduce that contribution in 16-17 when we actually close the books, and the required additional contribution of $250,000 for 17-18. If we work on these 4 bullets, I think we can also reduce that as well. But I do think we're going to be at about $100,000 more a year, which I mentioned before, just from increasing costs from negotiated salary increases, the comp study, the restructure and paying more health benefits for the employees in the program. I do think we're going to probably still have an ongoing increase of about $100,000 a year once we work on this, these 4 goals that we have for the program.
Thank you. Other considerations and next steps. This has to do primarily with the governor's May revision and the common message. So the governor is cautioning that the trend of increases revenues would not continue indefinitely. And then he also commented on if there's a modest recession, it would result in large decreases in state revenues. And also, there may be an impact of the Affordable Care Act. It would have a negative impact on California. And then his word of caution, cuts are coming over the next few years. In addition, the historical volatility of state revenues, the significant economic risks on the horizon, and the cost pressures from employer pension contributions, it all points to the need to maintain reserves and fiscal flexibility. And then the last word of caution, we should not make spending commitments now based on projected revenues in the out years. And then if you have any questions, I can address that.
As always, great presentation. I think the slides really help clarify the key focal points. Just to clarify, do these numbers include the TA?
No.
Okay.
They do not.
No, they do not, and they don't include the proposed.
Can you just say what
budget-
TA is?
Sorry.
Tentative agreement.
With the teachers union.
That's correct. And, or any other unions, and they do not, the multi-year projections do not include any projected additional cuts for 18-19. So those are not in there as well. So you can see that why we probably will have to make cuts once we put in the proposed TA. You know, if it's ratified, that would be about 800,000 per year into that particular multi-year projection, and therefore we would have to put offsetting cuts into the budget as well in order to maintain an adequate reserve.
And the next time we will see a budget that includes the impact of any negotiated salary increases or any other impact of the collective bargaining agreements will be in September, is that right?
Well, we have to do an AB 1200, so that's going to come forward at the next board meeting, actually, June. If the TA is ratified, we will bring an AB 1200 for the teachers in at the June 28th board meeting. It's a requirement to show that you can fiscally support the increase, the TA. So the board approves you'll see an actual fiscal impact of the raise into a multi-year projection that's provided to the County Office of Education. And the County Office of Education has to actually approve the raise before we can actually go forward with it. And that'll happen at June 28th, the June 28th meeting, and then any roles or Me Too requirements would happen at the August meeting.
Okay, so we would get a multi-year projection with the full impact of any collective bargaining agreements basically on August 23rd or 24th, whenever our August meeting is.
That's correct. And
okay.
I'm going to provide you with a summarized version in the Friday notes.
Okay, great. So maybe, Mr. President, Superintendent, if we could flag that as a meeting to begin thinking about sort of the long-term implications and how we want to, what our strategy is for the 17-18 school year and leading up to the 18-19 budget adoption, about how we're going to approach. As you know, the first of what will likely be many meetings where we discuss it. Yeah. On food services, I really appreciate your proactive attention to this and coming to us with already explicit sort of ways and we're addressing it. My recollection, and correct me if I'm recalling wrong, is that up until this year, 16-17, the cafeteria fund has been basically self-sustaining. In other words, there's been no general fund contribution to that fund since, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago.
That's correct. This is the first trend downwards in revenues that they've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And they normally bring in about $2 million in federal revenues. They're projected around $1.6 million. And so that's where, and we looked at it detail, you know, every single school site, participation levels, breakfast versus lunch, and the downturn is in the universal breakfast program.
So when we think about where we want to be a year from now, so the closing of the books of 17-18, your sense is that a good year would be a contribution of the general fund of $100,000, give or take.
On top of what we're doing already. So we do transfer the meals for the needy, used to be called that.
Yeah.
So it was about $632,000.
Yeah.
So a good year, I think we would want to aim for $732,000 to be the contribution.
And in fact, for those of us who remember, in fact, when we were dealing with the Great Recession, we actually swept that $100,000 on an ongoing basis. So there was a time when they were getting that, and we used that basically to help us get through the last, I don't know, 5 years or whatever it was.
That's correct.
And, okay. Because I mean, I do think long-term, 2, 3, 4 years from now, the goal would be to get to what we consider to be a self-sustaining program. Whether or not we then sort of redefine that $100,000 as self-sustaining as part of the, Meals for Needy Kids, or whether it's we are able to further increase revenue through fees or adjust costs. I do think, particularly given the financial pressures that we currently are feeling and will feel more acutely in the next, 6 months, that doing everything we can over the long term to take off pressure to the general fund, which I think for this board means, in addition to thinking about cuts, supporting staff and how they are approaching this fund. So, and just the other of my favorite funds to ask you about is the Child Development Fund. I didn't take a look at the budget book about it, but are we still more or less okay on that one? I know we opted to contribute some for this year. We made some changes to it, but it's more or less static. It's not in a downward direction.
Well, we definitely need to watch it. It's
Okay.
a very tight budget. We're contributing $127,000 to the Child Development Fund, and we are looking to maybe propose that reduction in 18-19. We added $48,000 in the TA for health benefits. So it's definitely something to
other pressure.
definitely look at through the
Yeah.
budget reduction process.
Okay, thank you.
Director Leva Cutler.
It was about the food program. Oh my God, I lost it. Lost it. And just so maybe I'll recover after speaking about child development. There is an expected COLA increase to the child development contracts. So I hope that will help just a little bit in terms of what child development can do. But I know that this additional cost is also something that weighs on that budget. But in the food program, I think what would help guide that, what we want to do is what is our vision for the food program. What would we want to accomplish in terms of making sure that our students have nutritious meals? Does that mean the universal breakfast? Does it mean, the kinds of snacks that we're providing to students? So I think part of it is also having what exactly we're trying to accomplish in providing the universal breakfast program to our students and the whole meal program that we have. I think that would help guide what our future decisions might be about our contribution and vision of what we want to provide, buffet style. We can't provide, obviously, family style, but, what are we trying to provide our students with in the food program that we do have in the district? So.
I would like to say that the Meals for the Needy money that we've been contributing, $632,000, was increased because of the meals, because of the universal program. So when we started serving breakfast to all kids, we increased the participation of free and reduced kids, which increased the Meals from the Needy program revenue back, 10 years ago from $300,000 upwards to almost $800,000. And so that money that's now been rolled into LCFF was actually generated from the food service program.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you so much. Is anybody here for public comment? Natalie? No? I guess so. All right. Meeting adjourned.